any other. They always just say the backup quarterback is the most popular guy in the team, and it was true. But now it's even worse. I mean, I'll bring up Monday night. Jimmy G, of course, wasn't pretty, but his record is 42-19 as a starter. 42-19, and they won. As you bring up all the time, how stupid is Josh McDaniel going for that 52-yard field goal with under 2 minutes left in the game? You know, misses the field goal, so still ended up giving Green Bay the ball midfield. You might as well have gone on 4th and 1 if you're going to do anything at all, or punt it deep. But he comes up with that. But still, Jimmy played well enough to win, and we can go about Josh McDaniel. But I mean, would you want to be a quarterback in the NFL right now if you weren't one of the top 10 players?
I mean, I'm cool with Jimmy G. The guy makes a ton of money and wins games. So guess what? If the Raiders decide they don't want him, somebody else will pick him up. He's not the greatest quarterback in football, but he wins all the time. And that's why, the 49ers paid him a ton of cash and the Raiders are paying him a ton of cash, and he gets hot chicks and he has money. So he doesn't really give a shit. I'd love to trade lives with him as long as I got to keep my wife and my daughter.
Yeah.
The rest of the shit I would swap out. But, I got no problem with him. The thing is, some of these other guys, there's just not that many great ones. So it's kind of like, where are you going to go? You want to get rid of your guy. Okay, that's great. Well, who are you going to get? And, when I'm talking about quarterbacks, the biggest one to me is I keep going back to the Jets situation.
Yeah.
Let's be honest, man. They go all in on this year, right?
Yeah.
They spent $50 whatever million. They traded what? A 1, 2 ones, a 2, and a 4, whatever it was to get Aaron Rodgers. I can't remember what the final tally was, but they went all in. And then, Rodgers takes the pay cut for what reason I still don't know, but I guess to try and, win a Super Bowl. And instead of go out and get a serviceable backup, they leave Zach Wilson on the roster as their only other option. And I really don't understand it, man. We talked about it on this show. I've talked about it everywhere that anyone will listen. They should have cut Zach Wilson last year, and they should have put somebody into the picture that could have picked up the slack. Because now, let's be honest, man, the Jets are just wasting this season. It's a waste.
Well, I totally agree that they're not going to make a playoff run. I agree to that. But I will defend Wilson. This is the first time I pump my brakes on the Kansas City Chiefs game. There are little things I say. He's still a project. I'm not defending him. And he almost gave the game away with another late turnover, that interception that was unforgivable. But I see him doing little things better now. Now, is it a little too late? Maybe. Is it going to help the Jets this season? No. But I see him not running 30 yards back to get away from the rush. I see him sticking in and making some throws. Will it continue? Who knows? Everybody knows.
But if you look back, just especially the Chiefs game, look, they could have won that game if he didn't fumble that snap. It's just always something in games that they could win where he does something stupid. And it's going to continue to happen because he's that guy. That's who he is. It's not like he's going to get dramatically better and just not do things like that anymore. We've seen him now for years, and he's not good. So they should have cut ties with them and brought somebody in that could win games.
I don't disagree with you at all. If you're going to go all in, instead of going out and getting, Rodgers caddies at wide receiver, when you had receivers already, you go and get a good backup. If you're going to go, because
let's be honest, Denzel Mims is just as good as Randall Cobb at this point. You know, and they cut Mims and then signed Randall Cobb. Alan Lazard, he's okay, but they had guys that were just as good. I mean, Elijah Moore was better than Alan Lazard, so they could have kept Elijah Moore and Denzel Mims and gone out and got a quarterback. And at this point, what they should have done a couple of weeks ago was when, they've had weeks to do something here. They're not going to do it. They're sticking with Wilson, which is just god-awful stupid. They should have gone ahead. They have a 1 next year. I don't believe they have a 2, but they should have gone ahead and spent a 1 and gone out and got somebody to come in and play. Now, they could have gone and got Carson Wentz. He's better than Zach Wilson. Now, that's not saying much, and I don't really like Carson Wentz, but he would at least give them an opportunity to win some games like he did in Indianapolis. Matt Ryan, I kind of like at this point Carson Wentz a little bit more than Matt Ryan, but it's 6 one way, half and a dozen another. But they didn't do that. So what they should have done was, 2 or 3 weeks ago, when it's obvious that the Vikings aren't going anywhere, go rent Kirk Cousins for a year. And, David Moulton went on a rant yesterday on NFL radio saying this, and I agree with him 100%. He's not going to be in Minnesota next year. If Minnesota could get a 1 for him, and New York could get Kirk Cousins and potentially win a Super Bowl or win some playoff games, I think it's a win-win for both, because now New York's not going to go anywhere, not going to do anything, and Minnesota's not going to go anywhere or do anything, and they're not going to have a quarterback for next year. So, I know that he had the one good year drafting where he got Sauce Gardner.
Right.
He got
Joe Douglas is an incomplete. I mean,
but he's kind of hit or miss.
Right.
He had the one good year, and the rest of the time he's been missed. The offensive lineman is a joke. That guy shouldn't even be on the field. Becton, he's the worst. He's the worst graded offensive tackle in the league. I guess he just plays him because he drafted him. I don't know, but he's missed on some big hits. So who cares about the one? You're probably not going to draft anybody good anyway. Get rid of it and bring somebody in that can help you win this year.
Yeah, Kirk Cousins would make sense for the Jets for this year because he's a free agent at the end of the year.
Right.
So you don't have to re-sign him. It's perfect. I hear stupid Giant fans calling up, well, what about Kirk Cousins to replace Daniel Jones? And I was like, why? I mean, Daniel Jones is hurt right now. He hasn't played well this year, but he hasn't had a lot of time. I'm not trying to defend. Daniel Jones had one good year, but Kirk Cousins. That means if you're the Giants and you go out and get Kirk Cousins, that means you probably have to re-sign him. And at what price tag? And you're going to kick Jones to the curb.
You already signed Jones. You just gave him a 4-year deal. You can't get rid of him right now. Right. He's your quarterback. I'm sorry for the next. I mean, at least for the next. This year and next year, he is your quarterback. I mean, that's just the way it is. The 3rd year, you can maybe move on from him, take a little bit of a cap hit, and do something else. But for this year and next year, Daniel Jones is your guy. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing about the Jets is, like you said, the window's still open. They can go out and get Kirk Cousins, and still bring him in here. I mean, I'm sure he could pick up the system quickly. He's picked up the system before, so that's still an option for them if they want to save their season. How much that works for them this year, I tell you, after watching Miami up close and personal, watching them because I watched the whole game against the Giants, that team is the fastest team I've ever seen. That team, it's going to be very interesting to see how many teams can slow them down.
Yeah, but, Achane is hurt, and, they got beat pretty badly by the Bills. This past week, they didn't look as good as, previous weeks. I mean, I think that the Jets could compete with them if they had a quarterback. Okay. And with the defense, I mean, you saw week 1, what that defense could do, shutting down the Bills like they did. This defense is legit.
It is totally legit.
And the skill players are legit. Garrett Wilson is one of the best wide receivers in the league. Breece Hall, coming off an injury, is still one of the best running backs in the league. You've got the guys to go out there and do it. But, you were talking about Zach Wilson last week. The guy threw for 199 yards, the whole day, and threw an interception, turned over. I mean, the reason they won that game was Breece Hall ran for almost 200 yards.
I agree. Breece Hall is the difference maker, and I mean, I wanted to get to that. I'll probably get later on the show, but I was just thing that hit me in the face Sunday was like Breece Hall and Brock Purdy were in the same backfield at Iowa State. If they had
and David Montgomery,
if they had more depth around them, like the Oklahoma style of depth or the Oklahoma State type of depth around them, and we both love the coach there. Imagine the team they could have been.
Yeah, and they had some really good seasons, especially for them. It's just, not everything worked out, and those two guys left, and then Purdy was there kind of by himself. but it didn't end up as well. But they did have some good years with those guys, and that's why they had Bryce Butler, the wide receiver. They had those two running backs. They had the quarterback. They had some good players. They just didn't they didn't have the depth like you said that some of those other teams did. But that's going to be a lot of the issues with some of these teams is depth, because we're already seeing guys go down left and right. You mentioned the Dolphins. They've already had a couple of guys go down. The running back, as I just mentioned, Achane is hurt. Jeff Wilson's already on IR. They're going to have to count on Raheem Mostert this week. And, let's be honest, Raheem Mostert, he's an injury waiting to happen. So they're also banged up on their offensive line. Teron Armstead is on injured reserve already. This division can still be won by the Jets if they had somebody that could not be Zach Wilson.
And talk about a team in that division that took a huge Matt Milano for the Buffalo Bills. I mean, it's one thing I think they got screwed by Goodell. I don't know what he was thinking, having the Jags have the availability to sit over there in London, and meanwhile the Bills have to come off an emotional win against the Miami Dolphins, travel over there and play them, and it showed the jet lag and stuff. They got off to a slow start. If they didn't go off to a slow start, they probably win that game. But Matt Milano is a huge loss.
Yeah, and we talked about this. You asked me straight up, did I think that it mattered that the Jaguars are A, used to playing there, and B, going to be there for 2 weeks? And I was like, hell yeah, it matters. It matters a lot. Did I think that they were for sure going to win the game? No, I didn't say that, but I said it certainly does matter. And, they got ETN going, they got Calvin Ridley going, and they beat, one of the best teams in the league. But the Bills have got 2 losses. So that's why I'm saying with the Jets, that's why I keep harping on this, because the Jets still have a chance to win the division, if they had a quarterback. I mean, the Bills have lost twice. The Dolphins, as good as they've been playing, they've got a loss in division. So, the Jets could still be alive, but they're not doing it with Zach Wilson.
Bottom line, what do you think? How many wins that division? Do you have to win 12 or 13 games? Or is this going to be a kind of division? I mean, the Patriots right now seem to be a mess. We already went over the Jets situation. We talked about all those teams. Do you see one of these teams being a 13, 14-win team or even a 12-win team? Or do you see this division, because of how it's rolling out, being a division where an 11-win or a 10-win team can take it?
I think the Dolphins are primed to win 12 games. The Bills, they're already 3-2. They lose 2 more. You're looking at 13. Could they still win 13 games? Yeah, but they'd have to go on a hell of a run and basically go 10-2 the rest of the way. So I don't know. I see one of them at least probably winning 12 games at minimum.
Okay. Let's switch over. Big game on Sunday. The Ravens against Pittsburgh. I watched that game because it was at the same time as the Giants was, and after a while it was like, well, let me just watch Pittsburgh. Couple of things I came up with this. I was glad to see Kenny Pickett be the hero late in the game. He still has a work in progress. He still got a lot to get going. They still don't have a running game. Pittsburgh's defense played well. But Lamar, as well as he played at the end of the game, that interception, not good, because he could have put the game away there. The thing I came away from there is OBJ does not have explosiveness anymore.
Yeah, no shit. It's called ripping your knee up 3 times. I mean, I'm not surprised by that. My biggest thing was all the drops. I mean, Zay Flowers dropped a touchdown.
Yeah.
Rashad Bateman dropped a touchdown. I mean, Lamar Jackson is completing over 70% of his passes for this year, which is by far the best he's ever done in his career. But he's got to have some help, man. I mean, you got to catch the ball. And they went out and drafted Flowers. They went out and signed Odell Beckham. They got Nelson Aguilar. They drafted Bateman a couple years ago. They retained Duvernay. These guys have to do something. And, you can't be dropping passes in the end zone. And that's the reason they lost that game. But, he had 0 touchdowns on the day when he threw 2 of them. And that's you're going to lose every time when you're playing the Pittsburgh Steelers, when you're dropping touchdowns wide open the end zone.
And do you think that because of their wanting to get wide receivers involved, they've gone too far away from Andrews. I mean, Andrews was for a while the poor man's Kelsey.
Yeah, well, they threw it at him 10 times. So,
Okay.
I mean, he had 10 targets. He had 6 catches for 65 yards. He's still very involved in the offense. I think at times people are taking him away or trying to, but he still averaged 11 yards a catch. He had 6 catches for 65 yards and like I said, 10 targets. So I think they're trying to do it. But, they don't have that bruiser in the backfield. I mean, without J.K. Dobbins, the rest of these guys are kind of pedestrian. I mean, the Lamar Jackson was basically their best rusher, going 6 for 45. Gus Edwards carried the ball 12 times for 48 yards. So, I mean, they just don't have that guy in the backfield that can bust one and that is explosive. I mean, Justice Hill, Edwards, they're not bad players. They're decent, but they're not J.K. Dobbins. And J.K. Dobbins isn't J.K. Dobbins anymore. He's torn his knee. Now he's ripped his Achilles. He's probably done.
I mean, that is such a shame. I mean, I'm not an Ohio State fan. I know you are, and you were very high on this kid. And man, to sit there, and the closest I feel to that is a kid that I covered coming out when he was in high school, Silas Red, who tore up his knees at Penn State and USC, and then in pros. And it's just a shame when you see how hard these guys work, and to be this close to your dream, and then injuries take it away from you. It's a shame there. On the other side of the ball, stupid thing I read today, which I love. I did the one thing I love football because you have a week to prepare and go over everything, but it also gives some jackasses out there to come up with stupid things. And one of the things I read today was somebody floating it out there. If Pittsburgh wants to get rid of Mike Tomlin, John Gruden would be a good person to bring in. I'm like, John Gruden, who only won with because he took over Tampa Bay at the right time. He's suing the NFL, and look what he did out in the Raiders. They actually became a better team when he left.
Yeah, I mean, the coaching, I don't think, is the problem in Pittsburgh. I mean, the problem is they've got a young quarterback they're trying to develop, and their offensive line sucks. So that's their issue. Mike Tomlin hasn't suddenly forgotten how to coach. I mean,
they're still tied for first place.
Stupid. Yeah,
with all those moving parts going on, they're still tied for first place. And as you pointed out to me, and let's go into about Deshaun Watson. How he's being babied when they threw Baker Mayfield to the dogs.
That's the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen. And that's why, I threw that tweet out there because, Deshaun Watson's allowed to skip games and nobody cares. But last year when Baker tried to, gut it out and, risked his career going out there playing injured, they blamed everything on him and then kicked him to the curb. But Deshaun's allowed to sit out and, then they throw DTR and Dorian Thompson-Robinson out there to start a game when he's never played in a real NFL game before. And watch this. I guarantee you that he doesn't play this week against the 49ers. Deshaun he hasn't even gone out to practice yet this week because he's like, shit, I ain't going out there and playing against the 49ers and get my ass kicked. He's like, no way.
After what the Niners did to Dak Prescott last week, I mean, my God, that's a good point. And we talked about this for 2 years when he was out of football. He quit on the Texans. And as I said at the time, once you quit, it makes it easy to quit another time. And like you said, right now, he's got his guaranteed money. He'll pick and choose when he wants to be out there.
He's gonna decide when he wants to play and when he, pick and choose games that he wants to be a part of and sit on the sidelines when he doesn't want to. And that's not shocking to me after, he sat over there and watched his Texans brothers get their ass kicked while he was, getting massages.
And now we got Joe Burrow, who had really his best game of the year, without a doubt. He says he's feeling better. You and I talked last week. I was worried about him before this game. I don't want to see him get hurt. Do you think he's turned the corner? Do you think it's something that it was just that week? What do you think?
Well, I think part of it was playing against Arizona. I mean,
Right.
this is a team that's built to lose, and they're trying to lose. I mean, there's no reason why you would have Colt McCoy take all your snaps in the offseason and then release him uh, 12 days before the start of the season if you're trying to win games. So they're trying to lose, and they've released a bunch of players. They've gotten rid of guys that are good and haven't replaced them. And really, this game was completely lost when James Conner got hurt. James Conner is a warrior. He's a bulldog. I love that guy. Once he went down, this game is over. And according to reports, he may be out for a while. It sounds like he's going on IR.
Probably right. Even if he wasn't really hurt, they'd probably try and get it so they could lose and get into the sweepstakes for Caleb Williams or whatever. The other team, let's stick it in the AFC. Anthony Richardson, shoulder injury. Is this going to be his kind of thing because of the way he plays, where he's going to get beat up like this?
Yeah, I mean, he's played 5 games. He hasn't finished 3 of them. So, that's not a good sign. I mean, he's played 5 games in his career, and he has had to leave 3 of them. I mean, that is not good. And this is a guy that, isn't as refined in the passing game, so he feels a lot more comfortable taking off. And that's great, except for the fact that, these guys are a lot bigger, a lot faster, and a lot stronger. And they love it when they see a quarterback running in the open field because they lick their chops getting ready to take shots on those dudes. So it's not shocking to me that he went down. He's honestly played better than I expected him to,
Me too.
But still, this is not good. The good news was that they have Gardner Minshew, and they at least protected themselves by getting somebody who can come in and win games in the interim. And, looks like it's going to be Minshew for a while here. The team honestly plays better with Minshew out there. Whoa. And the reason they won that game was because of Gardner Minshew and because of Zach Moss. So we'll see what happens going forward with the Colts. But they're 3-2 right now, and they honestly could win this division, if Minshew maintains the starting job.
Well, I mean, Minshew, he's one of those guys. The guy who played for the Redskins last year is with Atlanta now. I can't even think of his name.
You're talking about
what's it? God, Haney.
Heineke, Taylor Heineke.
Heineke, right?
Yeah, from Old Dominion.
He's one of those guys that maybe will never be the starter for a full year, but he will never hurt you as a backup. And if you do lose, like you say, you lose your starting quarterback, he's the kind of guy that the rest of the team sees to trust automatically. No matter what, they trust him. They trust him explicitly, and they're ready to get behind him, which doesn't happen with very many backup quarterbacks. I mean, it's nice to see, and they seem to be good guys too. Let's go to the Cowboys now. The Cowboys look like, if they're not playing against a crappy team like the Giants, or a crappy team like New England, or a team without their quarterback like the Jets, they struggle. And what bothers me more than anything else is, the Niners are on a different level, but Arizona did it to them too. They took Micah Parsons out of the game. They found a way to, if not neutralize him completely, to keep him from making those big plays he makes against everybody else. And that bothers me because that's Dan Quinn's side of the ball. I'm not a McCarthy guy. I knew what I was going to get with McCarthy. And I don't. What did you think when you watched that game?
I thought, wow, these teams are way further apart than I thought they were. I kind of was buying into the Cowboys. I thought maybe that Cardinals game was just a slip up, but it looked to me like these two teams were worlds apart. And the thing that really stuck out to me was, Dallas's inability to run the football. Tony Pollard was supposed to be the guy and taking over for Zeke. They didn't even want Zeke back anymore. and 8 carries, 29 yards. He had a fumble that he lost. That was a big play. And then Dak. I mean, I like Dak Prescott, but the last 2 years it just hasn't been good, and this game in particular was brutal. I mean, he made some just horrible throws, and was just not even close to helping his team win the game. I mean, you turn the ball over 3 times, interception wise, and then like I said, the fumbles lost. I mean, that's 4 turnovers right there. You're not going to win a game when you turn the ball over 4 times, especially against the best team in the NFL.
Right, especially a team that has that kind of firepower to come back at you. And I'll tell you, the more you see Brock Purdy, the more I hate to say it, I forget who said it on Sunday night, but because you never want to put this on anybody's back, but you change 13 with 16, and they look a lot alike.
Yeah, Rex Ryan said that actually.
Did he?
Yeah, which makes me almost want to not believe it, but he's got that. He's got that confidence that Joe always had, and he's got that
quick decision making.
Yeah, the ability to run the play that's called, I guess you would say, and hit the guy that's open. He's not the most strong-armed quarterback in the world, but we saw him at Iowa State. I was actually, if you remember back, I was shocked that he lasted that long and was a 7th-round pick. I thought surely somebody would take him, take a shot on him in the early to mid rounds, at least 3rd, 4th, 5th rounder. And the fact that he lasted as long as he did surprised me. But what he's doing right now doesn't really surprise me. I mean, I didn't know he'd win every single game, but it all depends on, as we've talked about, which team you go to. And he's on the right team.
Yeah, he is. He's definitely on the right team. And I tell you right now, as long as they stay healthy, I don't see a team getting in front of them. You saw the Rams go down. Seattle might be a team that could, but I don't want to say give the division to them now because there's a lot of football left. But I don't see a team taking that division away from them. The thing that's of course we've talked about it at length. Detroit again looked impressive on Sunday, coming up with another nice win. Goff looks like he's comfortable as hell out there running that offense, and Detroit is becoming like, I don't want to say America's team, but they're becoming kind of the darlings of the NFL because everybody feels sorry for them because they've been down for so long. Would you say right now Detroit's number 3 in the NFC?
They may be right up there. I mean, yeah, they're in the top 3 for sure. And I got to be honest, their quarterbacks in the top 3, maybe the top 1 or 2 in the league. I mean, in the NFC. I mean, who's a better quarterback than him? I mean, I guess I like Jalen Hurts a little bit better than him just because of all the things he can do. But other than Jalen Hurts, I'm not sure there's anybody else that I really like more than Jared Goff. And, we were both kind of surprised that they moved on from him after he led them to a Super Bowl. And they were just like, we're one guy away. Well, it worked out for the Rams for that 1 year. But since then, the Rams haven't been that great, and look what they've done in Detroit by putting some guys around him. So this dude, doesn't get the credit that he deserves, and he deserves it because he's really good football player.
Well, it was the coach out. It was McVay a little bit. I remember how McVay used to run the offense with him, where he would be talking in his ear till the snap. Maybe if McVay had a little bit more confidence in him, I mean, you got to give McVay a lot of credit. He took over the Rams when they were a mess, and he turned Goff into a winning quarterback. Okay, got that. But it's like he almost was afraid to take the leash off. He was afraid to take the handcuffs off and let Goff be Goff. Whereas in with the Lions, you got Campbell, who's like this, I got nothing to lose. Let him go. Let him rip it and rip it, for lack of a better term. Go. Just do what you got to do to win the game. Maybe McVay was maybe a little bit too tense about letting Goff be Goff.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't want to say that McVay's not a good coach because he is.
No, I'm not saying he's not a good coach.
But I'm just saying that, this guy, he's got to have the right system. He's got to have the right guys around him. But this guy was the number 1 pick in the NFL draft for a reason. I mean, it wasn't because he sucked. It was because he, showed a lot of skills out there at Cal, under Tony Franklin's offensive system. He was in the right system there, and it worked for him, and he's in the right system again. So I think he's right where he should be. And the way he handled everything is what impressed me the most. He could have really let that affect him and affect his playing, but he didn't. He used it as motivation and kept his mouth shut and did what he was supposed to do. And look where he's at now.
All right, I want to do some in-depth stuff here about the Giants now because they're near and dear to my heart. I'm in a little transition mode. You got to either talk me off the ledge a little bit, or there's a lot of crap going on in here. You wouldn't believe this stuff, and I'll go over a little as we go on in this conversation. But I'm beginning to lean towards. This is one move I'm really beginning to lean towards and lean into. It is if they can get him healthy, I might want to see Saquon Barkley on the trading block. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, you're not going anywhere. I don't think this year. I mean, the way that the season has started, I don't know. You don't have this guy locked up to a long-term contract, and really, I don't know. This team's not as good without him. Okay, I mean, you look at the game against Miami. They had Eric Gray had 25 yards on 12 carries. I mean, that guy's not going to get it done. They've got Matt Breida as the other running back. So really, I don't know. I mean, I guess if you give up completely on the season, maybe you trade him. But who is this team without him? I mean, they're not good. He is the best player on this team, hands down. And you saw last year, Daniel Jones looked better because he had a semi or a mostly healthy running back in Saquon Barkley behind him. I just don't think this team's very good if you get rid of him. And they don't have anybody else that can help them and is a breakout player. There's not a tight end that I'm in love with. There's not a wide receiver that I really like. I just don't know what you've got at all on this offense if you get rid of him.
Yeah, I understand that. And me, I'm not one for tanking. I say you win every game you can. But I'm just looking as a Giant fan realistically at this. And it's hard for me to say this. I'll never forget years ago when the Mets had David Wright for the first time. And a friend of mine who's a Yankee fan came over and said, they should trade David Wright now. And I was like, F you. You're just mad because we finally got a good player. And as it turned out, I mean, David Wright was a nice quality player, but injuries took him away from what he could have been. And probably if the Mets had traded him at that time, they could have gotten something back for him. My thinking is along that same line now. Are they better right now with Saquon Barkley? Yes. But right now, I'm looking at Washington being ahead of them in the pecking order right now. I don't see them, sweeping Washington, which is basically a prerequisite what they'd have to do to stay in contention in the East. They're not up with Philadelphia. The Cowboys still have their number. So it's Shane and Dable still have a year of overachieving in their bank right now. They've got some money to spend. The people aren't be calling for their heads. If you're gonna do something, and he is your one valuable chip, I don't think.
Well, what do you mean he's valuable? What are you going to get for him? He's not under contract. He's on a 1-year deal. So basically, somebody's renting him till the end of the season. I mean, no one's going to give up a boat, a king's ransom for some guy that's been banged up and that isn't even under contract.
Give me some depth, some middle round picks. It's never bad to have picks right now.
Yeah, depending on who's picking them. I mean,
right. Okay, so you keep him to the end of the year. You end up being a 5-win, 6-win team. He walks anyways when you might have been able to get at least a couple of picks for him that you maybe could use for something. I don't know. I'm just thinking along the line of I've relegated myself to and this is hard for me to do. I mean, the Giants I never give up on. And I always yell and scream when people say, but I'm looking at it and going, reality. He has trouble staying healthy. Reality. He's not probably coming back next year. Reality. This season's probably over with for the Giants making the playoffs. 3 strikes. Let's make something out of it.
Yeah, I don't know what you get. for him when you don't have him. I mean, somebody's going to have to give him a long-term deal, and nobody is giving running backs long-term contracts right now. So, I don't know if anybody really wants to do that. I mean, if he's on the open market, somebody else sign him to maybe a 2-year deal. But I just don't think somebody's going to give up a whole bunch for somebody who they're going to have to give, tons of money to.
Well, the whole thing, you might get something from somebody who thinks they're in the race. They're a running back away from being competitive. All I know is probably
Who's that?
I don't know. I'd have to look at this. I'll have to look at and let me look at it and get back to you on that.
Okay.
But here's the thing: is for me, it's like I think at the end of the year the Giants are going to have to cut bait with him anyways, because the fact of the matter is, I think they're going to have a losing season. He'll have had 3 very good seasons. This one looks like it could be an injury prone. Say they get 4 out of his 6 seasons with the Giants, he's had good seasons. 2 others injury prone. He's not under contract. He's going to want a bigger contract. He's going to want a contract, and you're just going to have to let him go anyways.
Well, I mean, the truth is this just isn't that great of a football team.
No, it's not.
And they're going to be 1-5, that's for sure, because they're traveling to Buffalo on the
Buffalo's
15th.
Pissed. And Buffalo's pissed.
Buffalo's already lost 2 games, so and they're coming back from this defeat against the Jaguars in London. So, that's probably not going to go well. But after that, you've got a ton of winnable games. You play the Commanders twice. You play the Jets. You play the Raiders. You play the Cowboys, who've proven to be not that great.
Except against the Giants.
And then after that, you play the Patriots, the Packers, the Saints. So they can win if they have their best player. They can win some games after this next one. All
right. We'll see. We'll see about this.
Well, they ain't going to win any games without him. I can tell you that. He's their only good player. So they may start off 1-5, but then they've got some very winnable games. Like I said, right. I like their schedule. Once you get by the Bills, you got Commanders, Jets, Raiders, Cowboys, Commanders, Patriots, Packers, Saints. Those games are all games you can win if you got Saquon.
Okay. All right. So you talked me off that ledge.
All right. I'm trying to help you out, buddy.
How about their defense? They went in and it seems the young cornerbacks aren't helping, especially with the fact they have no pass rush.
Yeah. This defense definitely looked a lot better last year than it does this year. And then they go out and get Deonte Banks, and they've also got the other rookie who's looking better than him, honestly. But, I just think, it was a big mistake to let Julian Love go. That guy was not only, a good player, but he was a guy that the team kind of gravitated around, and everybody liked him. And he just kind of was the glue for some reason that held that secondary together. And they just haven't looked the same since he's been gone. He's been playing great, by the way, for the Seahawks. So, I think that was a mistake. I know you can't sign everybody, but that's a dude that I really would have gone and got. Then they went out and got Jared Davis, who has been hurt a bunch, hasn't really helped that defense. They signed Isaiah, they got Isaiah Simmons from
that's what I was going to get to.
And that to me, he's just kind of he's kind of a tweener coming out, and he wasn't really good and didn't do anything for the Cardinals, and he hasn't really done anything for the Giants either. So I think they've kind of missed on some of these guys. And then me, Kayvon Thibodeau was the number 1 player coming out of high school. And then I saw him at Oregon, and I was kind of like, yeah, he's twitchy. He's got some lean on him, but, he seems to be hurt all the time. It's just not, there just was never the production there that there should have been. And that concerned me. And they went out and took him very, very high in the draft, and he's just kind of been blah. And I think that's a big issue. I mean, he does have 4 sacks, but does he make this defense a ton better? I don't know. I mean, we'll see if he has 10, 12 sacks this year. I guess picking him 5 overall was good, but I guess I'm not as in love with him as I think. He's got 4 sacks, but he has 5 tackles.
No.
You know,
Yeah,
I mean,
he's not a dominant player.
Well-
Getting back to Simmons, who, like you said, is a tweener with some athleticism on him. I'm a little bit shocked that in a blitz happy Wink Martindale world, they haven't found a way to unleash him somewhere along the line. Maybe he doesn't fit in anywhere, and they're afraid if he gets out of there and he's stuck in coverage, he's a liability. But it seems like they don't have a place for him, and that's what they went out and got him. Usually, you think when a team brings in somebody like him, they've got an idea of what he can do and where he fits. And it seems like the Giants just picked him up and just, like the old saying of throwing spaghetti against the wall and seeing if it sticks.
Yeah, well, I mean, that was the problem in Arizona. There really wasn't anywhere for him to go, and he just wasn't that great of a, every down linebacker, and he wasn't really good enough in coverage to make a difference. And that was the issue the whole time in Arizona, and they were kind of happy to get rid of him and didn't even get much in return. So it's not shocking to me that he's not tearing it up.
And let's go up north a little bit from here to the land of New England, where they're taking us back to the turn of this century. New England hasn't looked this bad since maybe just before Bill Belichick's first year there. I don't know if he was. I can't remember he was that. I know he only won 3 games or so, but I mean, I don't think they looked as bad as they look right now. One thing I'm sick of the argument. Everybody would put it to bed. I know there's resentment. It's easy to tear people down when they've been on a pedestal for so long. Bill Belichick has not forgotten how to coach, and he was not made by Tom Brady. I even looked at the stats the other night. Tom Brady, the first 4 years when they won their first 3 Super Bowls, was a nice quarterback, a good quarterback. I'm not going to take anything away from him, but his stats were not jumping off the wall. Then, as it went on and he developed, yes, he became Tom Brady. But originally, it was about the defense, a running game, and Brady being a good guy who could manage the game. And I don't want to say manage in a bad sense. He's always had a little clutch gene in him. But the fact of the matter is, this stuff where it's like Brady made Belichick. He made Belichick's life easier, but, you could slot a couple of different quarterbacks in there and they would have been just as well. And I'm sorry, just put that to bed. Let's look at the Patriots right now. What Belichick needs to do is get a personnel guy in there who could who could really go out and scout and do the stuff they got to do to pick the guys they used to be able to pick.
Yeah, I mean, they haven't hit on guys like they used to. There's just nobody really on this roster that scares you. You think back to those wide receiver groups they had, and there wasn't like the greatest wide receiver ever, except for maybe Randy Moss a couple of years he was there. But the rest of the guys, they weren't that well thought of, but they sure as hell were productive. And I'm talking about Troy Brown. I'm talking about
Deion Branch.
I'm talking about all those guys. David Givens. You name it. They were guys that could really make plays and get the long balls, make plays downfield, run routes. I mean, these guys they've got now, I'm just not sure where they're going with these dudes. I couldn't understand the Devontae Parker move when they signed him, and then they re-signed him and gave him an extension, and that just blew me away. Ty Montgomery, that guy sucked for the Packers for 6 years, and I didn't understand why they brought him in. Hunter Henry's been a bust ever since he arrived in New England. He's done nothing. He had 0 catches.
They're wasting Gesicki.
Gesicki, I mean, he had 4 targets, 2 catches, 17 yards. I mean, Kendrick Bourne is probably their best wide receiver, and he's not good. So this whole group of skill players, I think, is not good. And to be honest with you, the last few years, I liked Damian Harris was my favorite running back they had, and they got rid of him. And now he doesn't even play for the Bills, and they kind of entrusted their whole running game with Ramondre Stevenson. But their offensive line isn't really good either. Mac Jones is not good. So they've got a lot of problems at the current time. And I don't pin it all on one particular issue. But it's certainly not
Belichick. He's not the problem in New England. It to me is the personnel.
I want to bring up, another. No one brings up a lot of it, but I mean, you know this name because you study the game more than I do. But Dante Scarnecchia, their longtime offensive line coach. I mean, when Brady was there, it didn't matter if a lineman went down; they could throw anybody in there, and Scarnecchia would coach him up and have him ready and know whatever scheme there was. And since he's left, that offensive line has not been up to Patriot level.
Yeah, and I got to be honest too, man. I mean, I don't like McDaniels as a head coach, but he was a pretty good offensive coordinator, and every time he's kind of left, things have looked not as good as far as their offensive continuity goes. So, coaching and position guys have a lot to do with it. I know they thought things would all get solved by bringing Bill O'Brien back, but he's been in the college game for a while now, and he hasn't really been in the NFL since he got booted out of Houston, and it just hasn't looked right. And everybody's blaming everything on the Matt Patricia and Judge experiment last year, letting these defensive guys coach the offense, and I don't think that really helped. But there's more than just that going on.
Yeah, and it's going to be a tough time for
the other main thing is too. Let's just, I mean, since we're being honest here, this division's gotten a lot better. Okay, yeah. When Tom Brady and Bill Belichick used to win the East every year, the East sucked. I mean, the Jets were horrible. The Bills weren't very good. Miami was terrible, pitiful. That was a lot of it was the Adam Gase years in Miami, or several of them were at least for 6 or 7 years there, and the division wasn't that great, and they always got in the playoffs because they won the division, because their division wasn't very good, and then they made magic happen. Once they got in the dance, because they had good guys playing the right positions, and they had good coaches putting them in positions to win, and there you go. But this division's a lot tougher than it was.
And also, how happy was Peyton Manning having to leave the Dome to go up to New England to play in a championship game? Yeah. In December, in the snow, or January in the snow. Not very happy, Peyton. We got a little time left. I want to break down tonight's game a little bit. Got the Chiefs against the Broncos. Who would have thought when you tuned in on Sunday that the worst quarterback named Wilson was going to be Russell Wilson? I saw him on Sunday. There was a play early, the safety. I was like, has he forgotten everything in football he ever learned? He held that ball, had to be 4 seconds. In the end zone, had to be 4 seconds, 5 seconds. I was just sitting there going, throw it, do something with it. And he has regressed so much. I don't know, like I said, I didn't watch a lot of Seattle when he was out there, but it wasn't like he didn't do enough. He did enough to help Seattle win. Now he's not even able to do enough to keep the Broncos competitive.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see much difference from last year to this year, honestly. No. I mean, I really don't. And, they all blamed Nathaniel Hackett and called him a hatchet job of a coach, and made fun of him and all that. Well, you know what? He beat them. He put 31 points on their ass on Sunday. So I was really happy to see that, because, his dad was a really good coach, and Paul Hackett was a good coordinator in Green Bay for a long time. And so, I just think he didn't even get a whole year. First off, I don't think it was really his idea to get Russell Wilson. He wanted Aaron Rodgers. That was the reason they hired him, was to get Aaron Rodgers. And then the front office couldn't get that done, so they went and got Russell Wilson, which the Seahawks were happy to give him up. And, I'm not saying that he wasn't good in Seattle, because he had some good years, and he had some good games. But let's be honest, man, he had some really good coaching with Pete Carroll. He had some really good players around him. He had one of the best defenses that we've seen in the last 15 or 20 years. And the Legion of Boom and all those guys that got him the ball back and picked up some of his mistakes. And then he took a beating, man. I mean, he got banged up towards the end of his career there. He took a bunch of shots, and he's not the same guy. and I'm not sure how great he ever was, but he's certainly not the same guy now.
Yeah, let's face facts. I mean, we got the Legion of Boom with those kind of guys. I'm sure he played on a lot of short fields. I'm sure he didn't have to go 80 yards a lot.
Well, and he made mistakes sometimes, and they didn't get amplified because the defense was able to pick up the slack and get him the ball back and turn the other team over quite a bit and stop them quite a bit, and that helped him and made him look a little bit better than he was.
Now, not meaning to pile on tonight, and not wanting the Chiefs to match the 70 points that Miami put on Denver a few weeks ago. I would like to see. They seem to be, for lack of a better term, in a little bit of a championship malaise. They had that one really great game against Chicago. They're winning. I have faith in Reed. I have faith in Mahomes. I have faith in Kelsey. I have faith in Spags as a defensive genius. Maybe it's too strong a word, but he's a great defensive schemer. The thing about it, I'm waiting for them to put a couple of games together like they did against Chicago, where there's no doubts. They are back. It is the Chiefs. I think that the talent's not lessened. I just think they're in a little bit of a coast mode, which worries me a little bit. I don't know I know you probably don't feel that, but I'll give you your turn to say, what do you think about it?
I'm okay with them, man. They find ways to win, and that's kind of always been their thing. I mean, they don't always just blow everybody out by 50 points. They just end up winning the games, and that to me is what makes them great. They've got a really good coach. They've got a really good quarterback, I love Spagnuolo as well. So they're a well coached team who relies on their quarterback quite a bit, and they've found something here with this Pacheco guy. No one ever gives them credit for their drafting, but they went out and drafted Patrick Mahomes, and everybody's like, why did they move up to get that guy? And look what he's turned into. And then they take Pacheco in the 7th round, and he's one of the best running backs in the NFL. So I'm never worried about the Chiefs as long as Andy Reid is there, and as long as Patrick Mahomes is there. This team is going to win games, and even though Kelsey is banged up a little bit, I still feel like this team is going to roll. They've beaten the Broncos, I think, 16 times in a row, and I think we could probably chalk it up to 17 now.
16. They're getting into Dallas over Giant material.
The only loss they've had all year, they lost by 1 point in a really close game against the Lions.
Yeah, they're in a winning issue. I'm just like and look, maybe I'm just too critical of them. I expect too much of them. I'm not. I don't take anything away from any of them. I just get that feel that they haven't hit their stride yet. They haven't hit. I don't know. Maybe I'm expecting too much of them. Maybe hindsight. You always think of things like you said. They don't usually blow people out by 50 points, but in they always just. Maybe I just expect magic from Mahomes every week, and maybe it's just a little bit too much high there. Maybe he put the bar up, I guess, too high. It was funny after I do trivia on Wednesday nights, so I'm leaving the restaurant last night and I was talking to some people about football, and one of the waiters there goes, "Yeah, I think Mahomes is overrated." And everybody turned around and goes, "What? Overrated?
No.
He does things we've never seen before."
Yeah, and as we've said many a times, he went to the right team, okay? He went to the Chiefs, who were a good team before he got there, and then he got paired up with Andy Reid, and that certainly has helped skyrocket his career. But this guy had a lot of raw talent to begin with. He got to sit for a year, learn under Alex Smith, get the nuances of the NFL game, and he's never looked back. And this guy, they should have lost that game against the Jets. But he just kept doing things. The refs helped him, and then he just kept doing Patrick Mahomes things, and they ended up winning again. So this guy, never count him out. And that's also, you got to take into account, this offensive line is not really that great. I mean, Donovan Smith and Jawan Taylor are both struggling mightily at the tackle positions, but they know they're strong up front. Creed Humphrey, Thuney, and Trey Smith, those are good, solid core players. And so they're kind of just, having Mahomes stay behind those guys. And then if he gets outside, go outside the tackle box and make something happen. So they know what they're doing there.
Well, it's going to be very interesting to see. Like I said tonight, I expect them fully to be on their top level game and see what they do tonight. With the few minutes we got left, I want you to break down big game for my team, or my college team, I should say, even though I don't jump up and down them like I used to when I was a kid. Notre Dame and USC this weekend. Tall task for Notre Dame. They were able to stay in the game against your Buckeyes. Could they potentially stay in the game against USC?
Yeah, I mean, they're home again, which they were, against Ohio State. And they had a good game plan until the end when they forgot to put 11 guys out there. I could see Notre Dame winning this game. I'm not sure why they're still ranked 21 when they got their asses kicked against Louisville. And I guess, no one ever gives Ohio State any credit unless it's, they beat Notre Dame. And then it's like, oh, well, they only lost to Ohio State. And I was like, wait, you guys say Ohio State sucks every week. But then Notre Dame gets credit for playing them. So that really confuses me. But that being said, I like Notre Dame. Notre Dame is favored in this game. And I understand why. USC's defense is just god awful. And, if they didn't have Caleb Williams at quarterback, they would have lost probably 4 games already, at least 3. And, last week, Arizona almost beat them. It took 3 overtimes for USC to beat Arizona, and Arizona was playing their backup quarterback. So I could see Notre Dame win this game, and honestly, I expect them to win.
Nice. That's something for me to watch on Saturday night. One question before we go. Jerry Rice's son, what type of a future do you think he has? NFL, not his father's. He'll never match his father's numbers probably. But what do you think of him as a wide receiver?
I mean, that's tough. Those are tough shoes to fill, buddy. Jerry Rice is arguably the greatest player of all time. That's just kind of who he is. And I don't think anybody would argue with you about that. But you're talking about Brendan, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But Brendan's played really well so far this season. He's got 12 catches for 257 yards and 5 touchdowns. He looks good. And, he started, I think he started his career at Colorado.
Yeah, he did.
And then transferred to USC. And that was a good move for him. Although maybe, he'd be making some waves at Colorado too right now if he'd stayed. But, he's got the right quarterback. He's got the size. He's 6'3", 210. And the question is, with all these second generation guys is, can they be as hard a worker as his dad? That was the whole thing with his dad, man. His dad was the hardest worker. He was the hardest worker of anybody. He was the hardest worker in the NFL year in and year out. And even when, he was the best player in the NFL, he was still the first guy there and the last guy to leave. And that's what made him the greatest player of all time, in my opinion. And we'll see if, his son's got that same type of work ethic, but he's sure as hell putting up some pretty good numbers thus far.
Yeah, he looked good. So,
but Notre Dame's got a good secondary, man. They already saw Marvin Harrison, and they were able to slow him down. They used a lot of bracket coverage, but they also, Notre Dame's got a really, really good secondary, and I really like, their corner. I'm blanking on his name right now, but I'm really liking their corners and their entire secondary. I think some people have kind of slept on that, but Benjamin Morrison is the guy that I was thinking of. He is one of the best corners in all of college football, and I think if he can handle, if Morrison can handle Harrison, he can handle pretty much anybody.
Well, that's good to know, and I'll be watching that on Saturday night. Any thing going on Sunday?
Yeah, I'm not sure yet. We're definitely going to be breaking it down. We may have a special guest or two, but we are going to have man coverage in the morning, and we're going to go over all of the Week 7 games. We're going to break down that Notre Dame USC game, of course, but also there's some other pretty good games. I'm going to be at Tennessee and Texas A&M on Saturday.
Nice.
So I'll be able to do some live reporting from there. And I'm also interested to see what this Miami North Carolina game looks like. I don't know if you saw the end of the Miami game.
No, I didn't see that.
Oh my God. The Miami had beat Georgia Tech, and there was 30 seconds left. And Mario Cristobal, all he has to do is tell the guy to take a knee, and he hands the ball off. The running back fumbles it. Georgia Tech recovers, and 2 plays later, there's a toss in the end zone as time expires for the Georgia Tech to win. And you'd think, well, man, surely he'd learn from that, but he'd done it before in 2018 when Oregon had 38 seconds left, and they did the same thing. They could have taken a knee, and they ran the ball, and the running back for Oregon fumbled. Stanford recovered, ended up beating them. So maybe after 2 times, maybe the 3rd time's the charm, because he's done this twice now.
All he had to go is back into NFL films. New York Giants, Philadelphia Eagles, 1978. Herm Edwards. Come on.
Take a knee, man. I mean, Georgia Tech was out of timeouts. The game would have been over. 38 seconds. All you had to do was take a knee, and the game was over.
Yeah.
And he decides to hand it off and fumble it. It was hard to watch.
All right. Everybody have a good football weekend. We will be back next week. Nate, have a good weekend, and enjoy the game on Saturday.
All right, buddy. Talk to you soon.
Talk to you later.